Good morning, everyone. What a wonderful clear day it is today. Today I'm still in a remote region of Australia. I'm close to the Queensland and South Australian borders, and today we're on the trail of a couple of iconic explorers, the legendary Burke and Wills no less. Now, most of us who grew up in Australia will remember learning of Burke and Wills at school, most likely. The grand expedition that set out to cross Australia from south to north in 1860. Now, like many things we seem to celebrate here in Australia, it ended up in disaster when Burke, Wills and King, after months of struggling to stay alive, made it back to camp, only to learn that they'd missed the supply team by a mere 9 or so hours. Most of us will recall how supplies were left buried at the foot of a tree with the word dig carved into it. We Australians affectionately call it the dig tree. What few know today is that the dig tree still actually does exist. Today it's on private property owned by Kidman & Co at Nappamaree Station, to be precise. And we are headed out to this crazy remote territory to see it firsthand. Seems rather surreal to be standing in front of Australia's most iconic tree, in which I learnt about when I was at school many years ago, and to actually be standing here at this place. It's just amazing, really. Check this out. This carving of Robert O'Hara Burke was carved into the tree in 1898 and is still clearly visible. Amazing. How's that? I got to see the exact tree in the exact location. Talk about history coming alive. Now, to continue this story, I need to cross from Queensland into South Australia. And unless you've been living under a rock in this COVID era, it's not always exactly easy, but my paperwork is done, approved, the permits have been attained, and I have permission to cross into this part of the country. Yeehaw! It's it's hauntingly remote out here. Now, the reality is that the Burke and Wills expedition was flawed from the beginning. It was big on pomp and ceremony and little on common sense. Maybe they should have toned down the pomp and ceremony until they got back. The expedition started with 19 men, 26 camels, which they had to source internationally, and I believe around 23 horses. They carried about 6 tons of firewood. And of course, that's a big bonfire, right? And of course, the absolutely essential, let's not forget this when you're all traversing the country, a cedar-topped oak table with chairs. They had about 6 wagons carrying everything from rum to, again, another travel essential, a Chinese gong. To this day, I have no idea what the gong was for. If you do, leave it in the comments section below, because I'm absolutely dumbfounded by that gong. With poor leadership, a series of, let's be honest, dumb decisions, and more arrogance than wisdom, to say the very least, many deserted the crew as things unravelled before them. I quite frankly don't blame them. And in the end, it was a tiny crew of Burke, Wills, King and Gray who, well, almost made it. Gray was severely beaten by Burke for stealing some porridge. He died not long after that. That left Burke, Wills and King, who had to make it to the dig tree. And they did just that. They found the rations and existed on them for a while, but they were trapped. With their last camel now gone, there was no possible way of carrying enough water for them to move on across the desert anywhere near the distances required to go there safely. They did try, and they ultimately failed. Wills, in his dying days, asked to be left at the waterhole where he later died, and a similar fate awaited Burke not long afterwards. Now, where Burke died is certainly identifiable, but the roads are a little shabby. Bear with me, I'll get there by Christmas. So here I'm standing in this rather iconic place, and indeed this is where Burke's life ended. It's kind of surreal because there's a lot of mystery shrouding this in some ways because, you could write it off that he simply died of starvation, but there was actually another layer to the story when I did my research, that an Aboriginal elder, a lady, came forward and spoke to a pastoralist, and this was actually published in a newspaper in 1875, that she claimed that Burke was shot by another white fella, the white fella being King, because it matched the description. Now, I don't see why the Aboriginal woman would have any reason to lie whatsoever. Ultimately, when you think of Burke's lack of leadership ability, his downright arrogance, his contempt for the Aboriginal people, actually, in my personal opinion, led to their death. Unnecessary death of Wills and Gray. Gray was beaten to a pulp, literally, by Burke. He's not a very good character, and actually a few people abandoned the mission You know, I mean, he made a lot of foolish decisions. And when you think about it, when you're desperate to survive, and you've seen, like, he was sort of, you know, him and Wills not long before actually said, hey, we should head this way, and Burke overrode him again. Now, Burke had made so many dumb decisions at this stage, and you sort of seeing your best buddy Wills like, oh gosh, he decided, hey, just leave me alone here and just keep going on, because he knew he's probably going to die. And now you're left with Burke, and you're thinking, how the heck am I going to survive with him? I mean, wouldn't you sort of be tempted to, like, oh, and I'd piff him off a bit earlier and go find the Aboriginals who had lived on the land for thousands of years? Wouldn't you entrust your survival in the capable hands of the Aboriginal people rather than the incapable, proven again and again, hands of Burke, who actually shot his pistol at the Aboriginal group? I mean, talk about for a minute biting the hand that feeds you. But regardless of what you think about Burke, it is a sad conclusion that this whole expedition was, I mean, it wasn't a total farce. I mean, the people coming to find out what happened with Burke and Wills actually made a lot of discoveries along the way. So it wasn't a total farce, but the loss of lives at the hands of, say, the leader, I mean, it makes you question again his leadership abilities and his, you know, being culpable of the deaths of many men on this expedition. But regardless of what you think, it is a rather surreal place to be, in this iconic place in literally the middle of nowhere. And yeah, I can really feel its energy, and I think this tree holds many secrets that we'll never really know. I guess it's certainly possible that King killed Burke. Ultimately, he did exist among the local Aboriginal tribes, who certainly were 100% responsible for saving his life. Eventually, King returned to Melbourne, and it's his recollection of events that we consider facts today. Geez, this road, it's a little dodge, a little bit terrible, this one. It'll be a miracle if I manage to keep this thing upright. Go the sand. Okay, now I'm off to check out where Wills lost his life. You'll recall earlier how he requested that he be left by a waterhole while he waited to die. Yep, I know the exact place, though I'm not sure that my choice of transport is appropriate with this sand. So I'm sitting at the place roughly where William Wills perished, and I feel a forlorn sense of sadness sitting here really in this ironically very beautiful place, but I can't help but feel the despair and loneliness Wills must have felt as he died here of malnourishment, when I think even he knew that he probably could have survived had they assimilated with the local Aboriginal people. And he, I mean, Burke, of his own volition, I mean, shot off the pistol at the Aboriginal people and just did the wrong things by him. And I still do believe they probably, as king, he survived and proved that. How, Wills must have felt that he didn't have a chance to live because of the brashness and arrogance of the team leader, which is Burke. And the funny thing is, I feel sorry for him that he really hasn't got the acclaim that he probably deserves. And the leadership he probably should have got when he was alive, because the ineptness and arrogance and brashness of Burke, I think, cost them their lives in the end. And even in death, Burke has got more acclaim. If you look at, you've seen the shots that I've got of Burke's memorial. This is not, Wills is not as not as spectacular as Burke's was by any stretch. And I don't know, it's funny, we worship the wrong leaders, don't we? We put them in a higher acclaim when they perhaps don't deserve it. Bit of that still goes on these days, I would think, and it says a lot about the people who are leaders, and more to the fact that those that should be leaders. And I think Wills was a very thoughtful, articulate, intelligent person who actually had navigational knowledge and bushcraft to have made a good leader. But again, I sit here and I just feel for Wills, and I hope in his time here, at least hopefully, he came to some sort of sense of peace. It's all we can hope for, isn't it? And that we come to our own sense of peace of mind before our passing. Rest in peace, Wills.